Hello, everybody. This is my review for the Transformers Studio Series E6 2-pack of Dead Ironhide and Prowl. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's pick up the phone and take a closer look. Got Transformers the movie, Studio Series, Transformers, Buzzworthy Bumblebee, Ironhide and Prowl in there, dead as ever. 8624 and 8620. For some reason they gave Earthrise Prowl a number. On this side you get a CG render of both Ironhide and a Prowl. On this side you get all this crap. Then on the back you get product shots, big screen inspired, Decepticon shuttle ambush, Ironhide and Prowl. You get robot and vehicle modes, and when Decepticons hijack the Autobot shuttle, Prowl and Ironhide fight to the end. So they die. I am aware of the recently leaked 2-pack of Ratchet and Brawn. Am I gonna get it? Unless it shows up at Ross someday, probably not. So let's unbox this guy, or these guys. So here we have Ironhide and Prowl, and I'm thinking that we're going to go in numerical order for this 2-pack. So we are going to start with Prowl. So the first thing you want to do once you get Prowl out of the packaging is adjust the camera. First thing you want to do once you get Prowl out of the packaging is take his light bar, rotate him to the back, and peg it into that port. Once you got that done, there you have Prowl in his robot mode, which I think looks pretty good. I've never owned, this is my only Prowl figure, and it's dead, of course. So, yeah, so the instructions state that you can peg the included blast effects onto Ironhide, but you can do it with Prowl too. So this right here is actually a 3mm port, which this peg will go into. And it seems that only one blast effect really likes working for him. So you can peg that in, and then of course you can split these blast effects into 3 parts. So in total you get 6 different blast effects, and I just distribute them across my collection. Like Bumblebee Movie Megatron has one, Armada Hotshot has one. So, going over accessories, other than the light bar, you get just a basic white blaster, which pegs into his hand, which I think looks pretty good. You can't really pose this guy in action because he's dead. And then you can store that on his back like this. But whatever. Now let's get on to Prowl's articulation, which is pretty good for a deluxe. Head is on a ball joint, will look up and down, tilt side to side, and rotate. On my copy, it seems to like rotating to this side whenever I try to do literally anything with it. Door wings are articulated, shoulders pull a full 360, they hinge out to side. It's a pretty tight bicep cut, a little over 90 degrees bend at the elbow, wrist swivel, which is pretty good. You get a waist joint, however, I wouldn't recommend rotating it a full, but it comes off pretty easily. The hips, they can kick forward that far. And there goes the waist. It can kick back a little. You can go in and out. There's a thigh joint. Screw it. Very, very, very deep knee bend due to the very hollow back of the leg. And the feet can pivot up slightly, down, and rock. So articulation for Prowl is pretty good. Even though he's a dead man, you can get him into some pretty decent looking action poses. Even though he's a dead guy, if you have... I mean, this kind of doubles as a review for the regular Earthrise Prowl, so you can get him into some pretty good poses. So now let's move on to transformation. Now, I've never really handled an Earthrise Siege Kingdom figure before, except for Galvatron. I have the Legacy Galvatron, which is just a repaint of the Kingdom. I'm looking in my collection right now, and Galvatron is the only figure I see that is part of, well, him and the Sandstorm repaint of the Kingdom Scorponok are the only Siege Earthrise Kingdom figures I've really handled. So this is my first really experience with the Siege Earthrise Kingdom kind of line and that kind of engineering. And I'm gonna say it's not that bad. So the first thing you want to do is take the shoulders and bring them up. There's a slot there that goes into a tab there, so you want to just unpeg that, which then allows you to shift this entire assembly up. This will fold up and snap very securely into place. Now let's do the waist. So rotate the waist 180 degrees, take these leg panels and fold them up. And then you want to collapse these assemblies. Wait, no, not yet. And then you want to peg the legs together. There's a tab here, which will go into a slot there. A peg here, which will go into a port there. So just snap all that together. Then you want to collapse the legs in on themselves. These pieces will go under this. Then these will push past here and slide in there. Collapse the heels. Now, the godforsaken doors. So they will peg in. There's a slot here that'll slide under there. So you want to peg those in, but these things have a bad habit of coming undone. So then what you want to do is rotate at the shoulder and collapse this in. This slot here will peg into that tab. So collapse that into place. And then there's a tab here which will peg into that slot inside of the door. So just slide that in. Get everything all adjusted so that way the doors don't come undone. And there you have Prowl in his vehicle mode. And I'm just now realizing I forgot to do size comparisons, so I'll do vehicle mode size comparisons with Prowl, and then I'll move to the robot mode size comparisons. But this vehicle mode is pretty nice. It rolls decently. It has some pretty good detail. It's pretty smooth. Now then, let's move on to the vehicle mode size comparisons with the 2 other 86 spots I have, because I'm not comparing him with Ironhide. I'll do that at the end. So here is Prowl next to Perceptor in his microscope mode. Of course, this isn't scale. Mass shifting in G1 was crazy, and Perceptor sometimes shrunk down a lot when he went into microscope mode. But what is more in scale with these two is probably going to be Prowl and Perceptor in his tank mode, which I'd say this is probably a much better scale comparison to do between these two. Finally, for comparisons with Prowl, we have 86 RC. I think these two scale pretty well, and reviews on Prowl and RC will be coming soon-ish. So here's a comparison between Prowl and Perceptor in robot mode. Perceptor is quite a tall deluxe. I'm pretty sure he's actually larger than the Ironhide, but I'm getting ahead of myself. And here he is next to RC. So the scale between these two works pretty well, and the style works pretty well, and reviews on Perceptor and RC, once again, will be coming soon-ish. So, now that we've completed the review for Prowl, let's get him out of here and bring in Ironhide, who I think detail-wise looks really good. I mean, I do have the original 86 Ironhide, the one with the clear plastic, but let's just say that thing isn't the greatest durability-wise. Back kibble, and even turning him around to the back, not only is he not hollow whatsoever, he also fills out pretty well, except for these little things. And hands, back of the hands are kind of hollow, but whatever. So, think that all the detail on him looks good, especially the windows now being not only opaque plastic, but all this damaged stuff. And as you may be able to see, that right there is a 5mm port in which a blast effect can go. So you can display these guys literally dying, which is how I display them. So articulation for Ironhide is pretty good. Head is on a ball joint and a hinge joint, so it can look up really far, can look down past his chest. He can tilt left to right. It can rotate. Shoulders pull a full 360, a hinge out to side, and they have somewhat of upwards and backwards butterflies. Bicep joint, 90 degrees at the elbow. Wrist joint, waist swivel. This piece is just one piece, so the hips kick forward, they kick back, they go in and out. There's a thigh cut, 90 degrees bend at the knee. The feet are absolutely insane. So these can pivot backwards all the way, and if you shift them forwards, if you do a bit of mistransformation, you can get these things forwards all the way, and they pivot to an amazing range. So articulation in the feet is absolutely impeccable, which, I mean, let's be real. The best way to make a Transformer look dynamic is by giving them good foot articulation. So for accessories, I'm going to show them off in action, which this is one goddamn good action pose. Let's get him to look up a bit more. So, goddamn good. So you got the gun, which pegs in to the arm, and the other gun, which pegs into the other hand. Scared me for a second there. Thought I'd lost it. Then there are a lot of weapon storage ports for these. You're supposed to be able to peg them here into the back, but on the two copies of this mold that I've owned, they don't peg in there that well. So whatever. Now let's get into some bot mode size comparisons. So first up, we have, comparing to Ironhide, we have Perceptor, and yes, I was right. Perceptor is taller than Ironhide just by a little bit, but it kind of makes sense because Perceptor's engineering is very simplistic in comparison to Ironhide's. There's a lot of stuff that goes on inside of Ironhide's transformation. Then we have 86 RC, who's just a bit shorter than Ironhide if you don't count the shell on her back. So there we go. And last but not least, we have Ironhide and Prowl together. Not much else to say about that. So now let's turn to Ironhide's bonkers transformation. So the first thing you're going to want to do is unpeg the chest, bring this piece out, rotate these little panels out, collapse the head into that hollow cavity, and bring this piece up. Next, you want to kind of T-pose them, bring this piece back, and you want to take this piece and unpeg it from the main torso. Now, on the original, that's kind of easy, but on this one, it's a very sturdy connection. And you can see there's a joint there, so you want to rotate the upper torso, not the waist, the upper torso. You want to collapse that and peg the front into place. Next thing you're going to want to do is straighten out the arms and utilize those backwards butterfly joints to collapse those against the back of the vehicle. Then you're going to want to peg the arms together. There's a tab here which goes into a slot in the arm. So you just want to snap those in. And then you take the wrists and collapse those down. Now we get to work on the legs. So fold out this panel, fold out this panel, fold out this panel, fold out this panel, fold out this panel. There are a lot of compressed panels here. And then shift this entire assembly up. There's a kind of hidden slot here that'll go into a tab there. So this should just slide on in and do the same thing on the other side. Bang. Now with that done with, we can peg the legs together. Once you do it right, it'll make a really nice snapping sound. Next, you want to bend the knees. Now these two tabs will peg into these slots. So collapse those and peg those into place. Next thing you're going to want to do, this tab should peg into that slot. Now, repeat the same process, and these two pieces will peg together. Then you want to collapse this until it snaps. And then you want to make sure the back isn't separating, which on this one at least, it has a tendency to do. So there you have Ironhide in his vehicle mode, which is a really nice van color, which is a really nice and really accurate looking G1 van. And a lot of new detail is revealed in this mode. The stripe, the windows, the back, which has a tendency to separate. Stop that. I think this is a pretty good figure, and this is the one I'm actually going to give a comparison to the original 86 Ironhide, so you can see just how much of an improvement this one is. This thing, so can see one shade of red through all this. 3 different shades of red here, mainly due to the clear plastic. And speaking of which, the clear plastic parts here snapped online. There were hooks there that snapped, so now that doesn't peg in all the way. Fun. And back, there's no window there. This, while being on a damaged version, is better than this. And I'll do a robot mode comparison with these two just in a hot second. Next up now we have 86 Perceptor in his microscope mode, which once again, the scale here probably isn't the greatest with an actual fan and microscope. However, we can remedy that by putting Perceptor in his tank mode, which I think comparison-wise looks much better. Oh, and also, best sound known to man right there. Clicky ratchet joint. Next up, we have the SS86RC in her vehicle mode, which I think the scale between these two works pretty well. And finally, we have 86 Prowl. So, Ironhide has a lot of different places to store his weapons. Of course, you can store them back here, or you can slap them on top of his vehicle mode in order for them to be blasters like that. Or you can peg them on to the back of the legs here. And then when you put him back down, it looks like he has exhaust pipes. And this guy rolls pretty well, which is really, really nice. And for one final comparison before we go, we have the dead Ironhide versus the alive Ironhide. So, can see why I like this one more. It has more cartoony, all that fun stuff. This one doesn't have that. So, I like this one more. Now, some final thoughts on this 2-pack. I think that these two figures are pretty good. And unfortunately, this 2-pack isn't really available anymore. So that kind of sucks. It's unfortunate. So thank you all for watching. Goodbye and good night.